Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to EdTech Society's Masterclass 17 on designing, developing, and deploying online courses on an international scale. I'm Kapil Kadam, an executive member of EdTech Society. Before I introduce today's speaker, I would like to take a moment to tell you more about the EdTech Society. Our mission is to be one of the leader in promoting educational technology research and best practices, both in India and internationally. We are passionate about using technology to create effective instructions and meaningful learning experiences for everyone. At EdTech Society, we have various kind of events such as Masterclass, which is an expert talk with a specific teaching goal. Then we have Perspectives, which has panel discussion on a current topics relevant to EdTech. Then we also have in focus interviews, which focuses on exploring the professional and personal journeys of a person. He could be a researcher in the tech domain or an expert in the tech domain and working in a different areas of education technology. Then we do have T4E conference, that is technology for education conference. Typically this conference takes place in the month of November or December. Now, let us meet our esteemed speaker of this masterclass. So, I welcome Dr. Anurag Deep. Dr. Anurag Deep is an educational researcher at UNESCO MGIEP, New Delhi, India. His passion lies in understanding the learning process through data analysis of learner interactions and materials. He holds PhD in educational technology from IIT Bombay and a master's in environmental studies from the University of Delhi. Dr. Anurag Deep has extensive experience in designing, developing, and deploying training courses on themes such as education for sustainable development and media literacy. We encourage all of you to actively participate and feel free to post your questions on YouTube comments live. Now I'm handing over to Dr. Anurag Deep for his session.
Thank you, Dr. Kapil. Uh, Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Anurag Deep from UNESCO MGIEP. So, in this talk, I'll be discussing about designing, developing, and deploying online courses on an international scale. So, the takeaway from this talk is at the end, you will be able to understand the importance of designing online courses with an international focus, where I will be giving an example of the process of designing such a course which I am handling here and what are the challenges I faced. And the second takeaway is gaining practical insights and best practices for developing and deploying online course on a global scale so that maximum engagement and effectiveness is achieved and accessibility. So, with that as a background, so let's start with uh, the online course when it is being implemented at a global scale. So, the globalization of education. So, with the rise of globalization, education is no longer limited by geographical boundaries. So, today the online course offers learners worldwide unprecedented access to education. And offering online courses internationally opens new avenues for educational institutions and organizations. So, you may have taken courses which are being offered by international organizations, and participants like you are taking such a course from different parts of the world. So, similarly, I will be sharing my experience of when I designed and developed and deployed such a course, then what was the challenges I faced and how I designed that course as a team. Besides this, since there are participants from different parts of the world, these participants have different needs. And by needs, I mean since they come from different cultural background, linguistic background, and socio-economical background. So you may have to think about addressing those needs since they are your target population, and how to design such a course that caters to that diverse need is essential for inclusive education. So with that as a background, uh, that as a need, the first step is that understand international learners. So I'll be giving an example of a course which I have been involved in for last 3.5 years. It's a course on climate change, a basic course on climate change, and I'll be talking more about that course. Where currently that course is being taken by participants from different parts of the world, and of course, India is a major hub of the participants. Besides that, participants are from UAE, Africa, Mexico, and parts of UK. So these participants have different needs and preferences. They are from different cultural backgrounds and they speak different languages. So we have to first understand in designing such a course the need of these participants in terms of what are their cultural background, what are the languages they are speaking, what kind of technology access they have, and then only we have to design solutions, learning solutions for them. So doing a need analysis of the participants is very, very important. And overall, think of designing such a course. What is our aim? So as the aim is to design an online course, not just design, develop, create multimedia content, and then put it on a LMS, learning management system, develop those courses, and deploy to the participants. These three major steps. And the course should be engaging, interactive. The learning materials should be relevant for enriching learning experience. The second need is that the such an online course should be learner centric and user friendly. Participants should be able to access the course, go through all the course content, interact with the learner material through any device on any web browser. It should be visually appealing, and the design must be based on universal design of learning principle. The course should also cater to learners' needs with varying level of expertise. You could have learner who are like high scorers, and you could have learners who have very less knowledge of a certain topic which you are going to teach. Not just that, the course should be contextualized. By contextualized, I mean the examples should be from their respective cultural background. It should be culturally sensitive regardless of the background. And it should be inclusive from the perspective of gender. So I'll be talking about these different elements in much details in the following slides. But in this particular slide, I wanted to emphasize and focus upon what is our need and what exactly are we trying to achieve by in the journey of designing, developing, and deploying such an online courses. So with that as a background, let's go to the first part, and and through these throughout these description of these steps, I'll be using example of a course which I have been handling for last 3.5 years. So the course and a little bit background about the course. The course is on the topic of climate change, and the title is Climate Change: Understand, Reflect, Empathize, and Act. The USP of this course is we try to integrate the climate change concepts with the role of emotions in order to achieve pro environmental behavior and take actions. So that's the overall context of the course. So let me repeat it again, that the course is for understanding the concept of climate concepts around climate change, along with the role of emotions in reflecting, empathizing, and acting, with an aim to achieve a pro environmental behavior for climate actions. So there are around 8 themes in that course, which revolves around like what is climate change, science of climate change, trade-off and synergies, adaptation and mitigation, interlinkages, behavioral change and synthesis of learning. And the typically participants takes around 15 to 20 hours to complete this course. So this is an online course on our learning platform, Space. And currently, this course is available in different languages in English, Hindi, Spanish, and Portuguese. So I will be using my experiences and context of this course throughout the next slides of different next slides. So the 3 steps: design, develop, and deploy. The first step is designing any course. So the very, very first important aspect in such a case is understanding the needs and learner preferences. So for that, and I'm assuming that those who are listening to this talk are either tech experts or instructional designer or one who have done or created online content. So you are well aware of how you start with need analysis and who is your target population, and understanding their preferences. Next, whenever we design such a course, we do have to take the cultural consideration in a course design. Let me give you a very simple example of cultural consideration. So, suppose there is a context in the course where you talk about a donut, which is relevant for for English speaking countries. But when you implement this course in an area which is Hindi speaking belt, maybe the context of donut won't be able to relate with that. So you may have to use a different example, maybe medu vada in South Indian context, or a different example which is more relevant to them. Next is the language barrier and the solutions. So I'll be sharing examples of what issues we faced when we when we implemented the climate change course, and what were the language barriers, because one day we were asked to translate the course in other language, which was Portuguese and Spanish. And of course, I'm not an expert of that. Then there was a bit of challenging for me of interacting with the stakeholder on the other side, as well as to make sure that the content which is being translated and which has been translated is appropriate and correct, and how to deal with such a situation. So of course you all are very aware of the steps of designing such a course. So the first step is the need analysis. So suppose so when I was designing the climate change course, I started with the literature review literature review on what are the existing courses which are available for the general public, what is the gap between these existing courses, and in order to address this gap, how how my course is going to help to address this gap. Second is, you also have to think about who is your target population, especially the age group, and what are their needs. So here, an example and the process which we had to go through while designing the climate change course. So around 3.5 years back, when I joined UNESCO MGIEP, I was told that since I have a background of Masters in Environmental Studies and PhD in Education and Technology, design a course on climate change. And the target population was school kids. So anyone who is above 13 years of age to like 16 or 18 years. So anyone who is above 13 years, which means the school kids typically who who is in the grade 8 and above in the Indian school system. What happened was, after 2 years, when the course was made public, we found that even college students and professionals are taking that course. So those two target populations were not considered while designing such a course. The reason why they were taking this, and we were not even aware of the fact that these guys are taking the course, when we found out that they are tagging us on the LinkedIn. So imagine that a course which was thought for the school kids was being taken by college students and professionals. That was not even our target population to start with. So that was an interesting case which we found out. So that's a real life example which I'm sharing with you. So that may happen because it's a public course, free of cost. Anyone can come, enroll in the course, complete the course, and certify themselves and leave. So you don't have to pay anything. So, and there is no restriction of who can take that course. But so you see that the participants changed when it was made public, and they were taking the course and giving the feedback. So it may happen in your case also. Second is, of course, the next step is, once you do the need analysis, you have to define the learning object. What is the broad learning objective of taking the course, followed by at the course level as well as the modules level, followed by the pedagogical and instruction strategies, whatever strategies you want to implement, and the assessment aspect. So, of course, the learning objective, the pedagogical strategies, and the assessment design. So that's the typical step which we follow. This is followed by planning and organizing materials and collating and curating if there are materials which is addressing your need and your learning objective, and which is appropriate for the learner need. You can either create or curate that. And whenever you're handling project like this, there is a strict deadline to do all these steps, so adhering to the deadlines. You may be involved in creating such a course for which you are not the subject matter. SMA is the subject matter expert. So you will, as a course creator or a content creator, we had to involve the SMEs in the step zero while planning and reviewing the content, so as to ensure accuracy and relevance of the content. So that's also an important aspect, that you can't afford to make mistakes at the content level, and you have to make sure that the content is accurate and relevant for your target audience. So these are the typical steps which we follow while designing the designing designing. It's followed by the next step of developing the course. So in this specific step, you have to move to the content development. So there you, in the last step, you curated or created content relevant to your specific topic. Now you have to interact design content, new content maybe, integrate multimedia, and by multimedia I mean make a PowerPoint slide depending upon whatever is you need, PowerPoint slide, or create interactive content like in Genially or H5P, where you have to decide about the flow of content and then the learning path, learning journey of the learners. And there are n number of content type which you can create, which may vary from a typical just text or video with in video quizzes, in video questions, or interactive hotspot, or branching scenarios. So you have to decide the type of multimedia which you are going to use and the different type of interactions which you are going to implement while doing that. The next step is the assessment design. Assessment, which is evaluating your learning objective and is based on the content which was given to the learners. So the alignment between constructive alignment between learning objective, learning activities, and the learning assessment and the assessment aspect. And it's very important to think about the course accessibility. And by accessibility, I mean the platform where you are going to host the content. This is the typical learner management system. So now we are in the step of developing such an online course. And there are some best practices which one have to follow while developing such a course. Of course, the first one is the constructive alignment part, where which talks about alignment between learning objective both at the module level, at the course level, or a module level. Aligning these learning objectives with instructional strategies and the assessment. While creating assessment, it's very important to provide in course and maybe module end assessment. It's very important to provide immediate, constructive, and customized feedback. Immediate is whenever students are attempting an in course assessment, you have to give them the feedback immediately when they have attempted that question. And the feedback should not be just in the form of correct or wrong. It should give them a bit more about why it's either correct and an explanation on why it's correct and the explanation. And if it is wrong, then direct them to a relevant section of the module which will help them to answer that question. And customized, and by customized I mean the same feedback. So suppose if there is a multiple choice question, the same feedback can't be applicable for all the four options. So you have to customize feedback based on different options and the selection of student responses. During course developing, we have to include examples from an authentic situation related to the topic. So here I would like to give an example of the climate change from the course of climate change. As you know that we all are getting affected by the climate change and in some way or the other. And then, so suppose there is a participant who is from the who is in the coastal region of India, and another participant who is in UAE, and a third participant in Mexico. We are talking about effect of climate change. We can't give an example of rising sea level for a participant who is in UAE, because that won't be relevant to him or her. That will be more relevant to a person who is like residing beside the coast, and it may not be relevant for a participant who is in another part of the world, which is in Mexico. Mexico. So you have to find a way of how to make the examples relevant for the participant, and even now we haven't been able to address this issue. One way we have tried to address that is like we are creating a pool of examples shared by the course takers on effect which participants see around them. So what we have used is, and I could show you by going to the course online. So what we have used is we have created and embedded an interactive map where participants from different geographies are sharing examples, and not just examples in the form of a text, but they are also sharing videos and images of how they are getting affected by the different aspects of climate change. And in this way, participants from different geographies can also see that it's not that the whole world is suffering from the same, I mean, is uh, is getting affected from the same type of effect, which may be different for different context and geographies. And not just that, they do tag other participants and they do explore the responses posted by other participants. So it has been a very, very interactive and successful activity which we have integrated in our course, where participants share their responses on how they are being affected by the climate change. So you can follow something similar like this, because the topic of climate change is generic, and uh, participants from different age groups can take different age groups and different geographies can are taking such a course, so they are sharing such an example. So going to the next step of best practice, which is collaboration. So providing collaborative activities that requires learners to interact with each other. So in my course, I don't think that there is any such specific activity because it's a self-paced learning. But we can think of making groups in online course where participants are involved in doing collaborative activities, and you may also think of doing a peer evaluation of of the responses or the projects which the participants have submitted. So that could be one way of the collaboration, evaluating each other responses or submissions. Another very, very important aspect is dynamic dynamicity in the learning path. So incorporating flexible learning pathways and options for self-paced learning to accommodate the diverse needs of our learners. So we may have, and we generally have participants who are very quick in finishing the course, doing all the activities, and some participants who take a bit of time to do all the learning activities. And these participants should have a choice on creating their own learning journey or deciding their own learning journey. So, the course or the content which you plan to develop should have an option of flexible learning pathway where the participant can go back and forth between activities within a module or across the modules. The last one is ensuring that each learners get a personalized and customized reminder about the due dates of pending activities. So this is especially important in my case and maybe important for your cases, where if you are planning to develop a self-paced online course, then what we have found is that in my case that typically participants takes around 50 to 20 hours to complete the course. So if a participant have not completed the course within 20 days from the start date, then in most of the cases they don't complete the course. So one way to achieve completion and make sure that they do all the activities, complete the course, and get certified is by reminders, gentle reminders of pending activities and due dates. So it helps in achieving a course completion, and it helps in achieving or maintaining motivation of the participants. So these are few best practices which one have to keep in mind while developing online course. So I talked about the alignment constructive alignment between the learning objective, instruction strategy, and assessment, providing feedback which should be immediate, constructive, and customized, providing authentic example which is related to their context and the topic, providing giving a scope of collaborative activity which may be a peer evaluation activity, and incorporating a dynamic and flexible learning path, and it should not be a linear one. And the last one is definitely a gentle reminder for the pending activities helps in motivating participant to take the course and completing it. Coming to the last step of deploying. So we have designed the course by understanding the learner need analysis from the literature review, thinking about the sequence of activities and the content, involving the subject matter expert. We talked about I talked about the development aspect where we discussed the different ways of making interactive content, which could be different types like video, interactive video, branching scenario, mm, maybe assessment in the form of crosswords, assessment in the form of drag and drop activity. We talked about immediate importance of immediate customize and personalized feedback, dynamic learning pathways, and now comes the step of deployment when we are when we are putting it on our learning management system, and when participants are actually taking the course, have started taking the course. So it's very very important for some considerations and some quality assurance process. So I have few points in mind. So technical consideration, the first one. So in my in my course, the climate change, when it was started 3.5 years back, we never thought that it's going to be a such a uh, big implementation. So right now the course is being so last year the course was taken by 97,000 participants across the world. So there we we face the issue of server lag, then accessibility on devices. Then when we were implementing it in the African region where not just devices but even the bandwidth is an issue. Definitely the device compatibility and the learning management system. So there have been instances in my case while developing another course where there was an issue of porting the content from one platform to another platform. And especially the one has to be considerate about the technical aspect when the course is being and may be translated in a different language, and seamless integration of the content. So definitely the SCOM package, whether it can, so if it's SCOM compatible, whether it can be imported in a different in another learning management system. So those kind of technical consideration one has to keep in mind when designing such a course. Second one is logistical consideration. So there may be a difference in time zones. So there have been instances where the deadlines have to be changed considering the difference in the time zones, or the deadlines have to be changed based on different uh, based on different schedule which their education system are working, I mean following. So it's not like in case of India where there is a typical board exam at the end of March, summer holidays, and then winter holidays. There are different schedules which are followed in different geographies. So we will have we as a implementation of such a course, we do have to take such into consideration, and the timelines should be realistic. So we have experienced that in case of climate change, when the course was implemented, typically we found that 18 to 20 hours was enough for participants to complete the course. But when it was implemented in Mexico, somehow student took around 23 to 25 hours to complete the course. I'm not sure about what happened, why there was a delay, but that was one thing which we found while implementing such a course. So we are still in the process of figuring out. And one factor which we have found is the length of the videos which we used in the Spanish version, because there we changed our videos from English to Spanish and the length was not exactly same. So when we were creating brochure for implementation in Mexico, we wrote 20 hours, but we didn't took into consideration that this 20 hours may not be applicable when the course is being implemented in Mexico. So this is what our experience have been, and this may also happen with you. So make sure that you do a pilot test and you have sufficient data of on maybe how much time participants are taking the course, whether they are facing an issue on completing the course. And it may happen that there are some different technical issue which may arise because of the uh, country policies, because sometimes what happens is certain things which you have embedded in the course may or will not run in another country because of the country IT policy. We face this issue in case of our implementation in Japan, because there was a number of discussion back and forth that it was working on our side but it was not working on their side. And then we figured out that it was because of the country IT policy that few of the content which we had embedded was not working. And coordinating with local stakeholders, logistical consideration. So definitely uh, while implementing such a course, Coordinating with the stakeholders, administrators takes time, and it's not same for all the countries. So especially in my course implementation, the climate change course, we go by three ways. One is we implement the course through the implementation partner. Second way is if there is any organization who contact us, we coordinate with them. Third way is we coordinate with the education ministry of that specific country, and then we have a number of discussions, sign MOU, and then we start implementing the course. Implementation through the implementation partner is the quickest, followed is similar to implementation with coordinating with any organization who directly contact us, versus it's different when we coordinate with the national bodies, because there are a number of bureaucratic processes, things which we have to follow, make sure that it's vetted by the other country, the content is appropriate, and and we get first official letter from them that it's appropriate, and then only it can be implemented, and it takes time. Third is the cultural consideration. Definitely the linguistic and cultural consideration. uh, so what we have found is, so we got a request of translating the climate change course from English to Hindi, English to Spanish, English to Portuguese. So the English version has around 15,000 words, and when it was translated to Portuguese, the number of words increased or decreased. I'm not sure. I will have to check. And the best part was I'm not able to understand what's written on the screen, but I have to make sure that the content is appropriate. So we have to hire a third party to check whether the translation done by the second party is correct or not. So that's one way of checking the translation. One more thing. So this is an issue which we found, that in this course, we asked one of our intern to create an image. The image, which was of an infographics, and then we didn't had the editable image. So when we were translating the content, then the National Commission of Portugal asked for the editable image, and then we realized that we don't have such a editable image or the editable content. So these experiences help us to refine ways of designing and developing courses, and make sure that you do have to take into consideration that suppose if the courses will be translated into different language, you should have all the editable file ready with you. And cross cultural collaboration, another important aspect is the quality assurance process. So definitely the quality of the content, whether it's reliable and effective. So one way to assure the validity and reliability of the content is involving subject matter expert from day one, whenever you have started conceptualizing the content. Another important aspect is that functional usability, accessibility across platform and devices. So we do have to make sure that the content is usable, accessible across different platforms and devices. By platform, I mean web browsers, and devices is mobile devices, Android and Apple. Feedback. So typical process which we follow is getting feedback from experts and feedback from participants. So this feedback is very important, and we have to take this feedback into consideration and make changes accordingly. Otherwise, you may face issues or you may get feedback maybe after 6 months on the same content, same topic, same thing which was told to you when we were in the design, which were told to us when we were in the designing phase. And continuous improvement. So definitely there is always a scope of improvement. So every year when we do the implementation, we have some new sets of feedback. We make changes, we reflect on those changes, then we improve the content. So these are the different considerations which one has to take, and these considerations have to take from the beginning itself, from the start, from the need analysis, that what could be the possibility, how it could affect the implementation, how it could affect the usability or accessibility across different platforms. So these are the things which we have to consider. So overall, there are different steps in these three broad steps. I talked about the need analysis, starting in the design phase, starting with the need analysis, defining the learning objective, pedagogical instruction strategies, assessment design, planning and organizing training materials, involving subject matter expert in planning and reviewing the content to ensure accuracy and relevance of the content, followed by the actual development of the material, content development, multimedia integration, assessment design, and ensure that course is accessible to different platforms, different learners. And techniques for promoting learner engagement. Then the deployment, in the deployment phase, we do have to think about the technical consideration, logistical consideration, and cultural consideration, and quality assurance process. I can see one question, so I'm almost at the last slide and I will address that question. So overall, uh, conclusion and summary. So first, we have to start with understanding diverse international learners. We discuss the diverse needs, preference, characteristics of international learners, including cultural consideration and learning styles, strategies for designing the course, inclusive course that cater to diverse learners, emphasizing the clear learning objective, interactive, creating an interactive content and learning engagement, best practices for developing such a course covering content development, multimedia integration, accessibility consideration, and deploying. Like we provided guidance on how to deploy and what are the considerations what when one has to keep in mind, thinking about the technical, logistic, cultural, and also the platform, the learning management system for course delivery and quality assurance process. So, with that as a background, so in this talk, I have given you a broad overview of things which we have to keep in mind. And as a team lead of this course, I have learned a lot, and there will be mistake which will be done, and these mistakes are not just mistakes, it's a learning opportunity for us, that next time we don't have to make such a mistake, and we have to keep in mind whenever we are developing new course. For example, one of the mistake was forgetting about keeping the editable version of the image which was created by an intern in the English version when the requirement came suddenly after 1.5 years for the editable image. Forgetting about that the course may be translated after 2 years in a different language. So we have to be prepared with all the course content in one document, because whenever we are translating it into different language, the first thing they will ask is for the course content. And the course content is not just the course text which is written on the on the platform, it includes text which is present in the interactive elements like interactives like H5P and Genially, as well as images, because the second party is going to translate once, because they also hire some consultant or organization who is going to translate it once. You can't make an excuse that, sorry, I forgot that the text which was in the image was not translated. So it has happened with us. So make sure that you keep all the content, the textual content, the content in an image, content from multimedia interactives like Geneli H5P in one document. Third, make sure to think about who is participant who is in remote part of Africa with least bandwidth possible, how they are going to take the course. And also we have to think about the implementation where participants from different geographies are taking the course. Will this will this example be relevant for them? So definitely the technical, logistic, and cultural factors discuss platform for course delivery and quality assurance process, how to maintain quality. So with that as a background, now I would look at if there is any specific questions, or I will deep dive into one any specific part of the presentation where participants have question. Uh, so I can see few questions in the chat. How do you decide on what changes to implement with each iteration of the course? Yes. So let me give you one example. Thank you, Surinika Kanan, for asking that question, and that's a very, very important aspect. So let me give you an example from my implementation, which happened. So in the feedback form, one of the participants wrote uh, that the examples should be in the examples are not relevant to them. Example of that how climate change is affecting them, and the example was on rising sea level. And then what we found is definitely it's a relevant feedback. And then we came up with an idea of how we can give contextualized or different examples who are from participants from different geographies. So there we asked participants to share an example. We created a repository of those examples and gave a clickable link in the course where participants can click that link, go to their geography, and check whether there is any similar context which is present there. That's one. I mean, the requirement of relevant example. There was another feedback of that the video is very simple, because as I said that we created this course thinking about the school kids in mind, and still currently the school children are our major is our major target population. But this was a feedback from someone who was from a college level. So then it may be very simple for them, and then that's why we thought of ignoring that feedback of making the content a bit difficult, or including links for advanced topics in the course. So we consciously ignored that feedback because our target population was clear. And so it depends on case to case basis. So if the course is for college level, we don't include examples from that school level, but you can get a feedback like the feedback that the content is not relevant for you. So going to the next question, is there a recommended vetting process for vetting subject matter expert? so so there are two things. One is the whom you consider a subject matter expert, and whether so the I uh, so whether a person who has a master degree in such a topic is a subject matter expert, or a person who have like a number of experience for teaching the course. So it varies, and definitely the practice which we follow is like we we get our uh, course content verified for reliability and like correctness from subject matter expert with different number of years of experience, as well as from different geographies of the world. So that's the process which we follow while selecting the subject matter expert, and definitely we get a lot of feedback in terms of content, in terms of resources, and as a course creator we have to take the final call. So waiting. Deepak Pathak, what are your suggestions for developing coding content in vernacular language as the most free platform is in English? What are your suggestions for the developing coding contents in vernacular language as the most free platform is in English? I'm not sure how to answer this question, because coding requires knowledge of syntax and definitely uh, algorithmic thinking, and Deepak, definitely you are an expert in that. I don't have much knowledge of that, but definitely the terms which you are going to use in the course content should be understandable by them, and you should include the English corresponding term in bracket whenever you are translating the content. Second thing is, make sure that you evaluate learners whether they have understood the concept correctly or not. And also make sure that the context which you are using is relevant to the learner. The example which I gave, the donut versus meduvada example. So whenever you are going into the different other language, I'm not sure whether I made it clear, but the so basically the context should be relevant for the learners. You can't use the same context whenever you are creating content in English in and when you are creating content in any other language. Which okay, Nagesh has a question on which LMS have facility to create flexible learning pathway. I'm not aware of this. Is this a chapter level or a course level? Could you use some example from your own course? Okay, so not LMS. So one of the activity is a branching scenario activity in H5P. So H5P, you can create a branching scenario activity in H5P. You can create similar scenario in Genially, where you can decide the learning path of the learners based on selection of an option which was given to them. So definitely branching scenario in H5P, branching scenario in Genially. I'm talking this at the level of modules, I mean in module activities. Here you can also do that at the module at the course level, where the student have flexibility to explore any module. Like in my case, in the climate change course case, student can go directly to module 8 without going through module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first. So they have the flexibility to go through the module in any sequence. So that's one way which you have incorporated flexible learning pathway in my case. At a chapter level, topic level, uh, you can do that at a topic level by using branching scenario of H5P and Genially. At a chapter level, you can do that. I am not sure whether that will be relevant in your specific subject. If you are talking about like any subject like science, social science, or college level subject, but in the case of climate change, I think it doesn't make much difference when participant directly went to module 8 as compared to module 1 or 2. So I think I have answered most of the question. If there is any specific question, Kapil, you may help me to ask that.
Yeah.
And
Uh, Thank you so much, Dr. Anurag. I think you have almost addressed the current questions and major questions from the audience. So I thank you for the wonderful session on developing and deploying online courses that to an at an international scale. So once again, thank you so much. For the audience, we encourage everyone to join our WhatsApp group and LinkedIn channel to learn more about our upcoming events. And I just briefly mention what is the upcoming event. We have Industry Talk by Dr. Vinita Shah, who is Head of Research and Strategy at Tata ClassEdge. The talk is scheduled on 21st March 2024 from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Anurag. It was wonderful
thank
having
you.
you.
Thank you. Maybe I can answer the last two